What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Dose with Dylan Davis. And in the co-host seat today is a guy I feel like I haven't seen in weeks, Coach Gint. Coach Gint has been very, very busy, so it's an honor to have him back on the Daily Dose today in the passenger seat next to me as we are streaming to you guys live through the Painted Lines Network on their Twitter and YouTube accounts. So if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that follow button at the Painted Lines. And also live through DSM Media's Twitch account. So if you're new to DSM Media with myself, Gint, Scotty, and JD, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Help us reach our goal of 500 subscribers by July 30th to be entered in all sorts of giveaways that we have planned coming soon. And hit that follow button on Twitch. Before we get started today, again, a few congratulations I feel like are in order. Congratulations to collegiate athletes now who can finally make some money off of their, what's it? We had sport law, their name, image, and likeness. Yeah. And congratulations to CP3, one of, if not the best point guard of all time, finally makes it to his first NBA Finals in year 16, I believe. So congrats to CP3. Congrats to Dario. And congrats to former Sixer, Mikal Bridges. I know that one's going to hurt you a little bit, Gint, but you know what? It's okay. On today's show, again, I feel like we're kind of in this weird spot right now where the Sixers just broke our heart. The Eagles have almost 4 weeks until training camp begins. The Flyers underachieved this year. And the Phillies just keep pushing me away from their horrible, piss-poor performances night in and night out. So we want to get you, the people, involved more on these shows. We put out 3 Twitter polls, which will be the main topics of discussion today last night. And poll number 1, Gint, that we're going to start with today is Joe Girardi the most disappointing Philadelphia coaching / manager hire? As of right now, there are 3, possibly future Hall of Fame coaching hires in the city, in Doc Rivers and Lane Vigneault and Joe Girardi. And none, they've all been disappointing so far, but none has been more disappointing than Joe Girardi. Don't get me wrong. This Phillies team is so piss poorly constructed. It would be difficult for anyone to be successful in his spot, right? But when we hired Joe Girardi, again, I believe he was in the announcer's booth the year before. He wasn't managing. He came back out of the booth. He came back to combine with JT Realmuto and Bryce Harper, and he helps bring in Didi Gregorius. And, we got the almighty championship winning New York Yankee Joe Girardi to take over after Gabe Kapler didn't work out in this city. And yet, in year 2, so it's early. So this is a tough claim to put out a year and a half in through a pandemic to say he's the most disappointing hire. I get that. I'm not claiming that he is yet, but he is on his way there, my friend, because he, night in and night out, has me scratching my head multiple times throughout a 9-inning game where what the hell is he doing? From his lineup card to leaving pitchers in too long and leaving them out there to dry, pulling them too early. You have the Zach Eflin debacle in New York when he lets them bat and then pulls them to start the next inning, the next half inning. And now, he brings in, me and George discussed it on the other day's show, he brings in Natali Feliz against the Reds in a very tight ball game where the Phillies had a 4-2 lead. And he brings a guy in who hasn't pitched in over 1,500 days, Gint. He gives up a grand slam. He had over a 40 ERA. Gint, you know what he does last night in a tie ball game? He brings the same damn guy back in last night in Natali Feliz. Like, that's a good idea. There's no more role definition in the bullpen. Hector Neris is the closer one day. Then he's not. Then he's closing a game the next day. Now he's out there in the 6th inning last night. Listen, I know they got injuries all across the board. I know their bullpen, you could maybe get a hit off of some of the guys that are coming out of this bullpen, Gint. But Joe Girardi has been one of the more, or if not most, disappointing coaching hires in this city that I can remember.
Yeah. First off, great to be back. It's been a very long time. It's been a very, very long time, dude. I think the last time I was on here was after Game 3 of the Sixers Hawks series, but had to take a mental reset from after that.
There you go.
Yeah, in terms of most disappointing. And the poll actually had it on there. Chip Kelly was the other name that really came to mind. But in terms of Joe Girardi, like you said, you kind of are just covering. It's just almost like Doc Rivers, random rotations. It's different every night. Nothing's stable. And like you said, though, it is poorly constructed, very poorly constructed. And we kind of had a little bit of hope coming into the year that you'd hope your problems aren't the same going into the next season. And the Phillies bullpen still remains a very big problem.
Again, it might be worse.
There's a very good chance of it. And it's pretty crazy because we talked at the beginning of the year it couldn't be worse than last year.
Yeah,
and it very well might be.
They were historically bad last year. Like, for those of you who don't know what historically bad means, that means in the history of baseball, they were like the worst bullpen or one of the worst bullpens ever since the game has been established. This bullpen might be worse. We were sitting here before the season started saying, okay, if they're middle of the pack, if they're a top 20 bullpen, if they're serviceable, this could be a playoff team. They have almost blown more games, more save situations this year so far. They have almost tied the franchise record again. It's July 1st. They have almost tied a franchise record of blown games. Last week, this bullpen blew more games than the days in a week. They blew 7 games in 6 days because they had a doubleheader, and I'm pretty sure they blew a lead in both of those games, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, you're right. It is harsh. It is harsh to say when you look at how this roster is constructed, when you look at the injuries, when, last year there's no fans. It's a 60-game season or whatever in the middle of a pandemic. This year starts off still with that. The pandemic's still going on, but you know what I mean. Fans are back now. So it's really hard to escalate him to most disappointing hire. But when we brought in Joe Girardi, we signed Bryce to $330 million. Then we signed the best catcher in baseball, and we're looking at this lineup. They bring in Andrew McCutchen. And what does that scream to you, though? Again, that screams we're trying to win a championship, right? Like, you don't bring in those players if you're not trying to win right now.
Yeah.
And then the first manager doesn't work out. The unorthodox, the kind of weird Captain Coconut Oil Head Gabe Kapler, who, by the way, has a San Francisco Giants team at the best record in baseball right now. So I think that plays a role in it as well. A guy that this city hated, that I didn't very much like, that you didn't like, that a lot of people didn't like. He was canned. And then you watch Girardi come in, who was supposed to elevate this team to the next level, and it's been reversed. I think Girardi's record at this point of his Phillies tenure is worse than Gabe Kapler's record as the Phillies manager through this many X amount of games. And B, Gabe Kapler I'd have to go down the San Francisco Giants roster. But when I check the box score on the San Francisco Giants game, their roster, their lineup doesn't scream all-stars or best record in baseball, okay? And he has them at that. In the division that has the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers, mind you, that they're leading right now. Now, it's still early. I'm not saying that's going to keep up. But my God, dude, they are like almost 30 games above 500, and you're watching the Phillies 5 games under 500 in fourth place of maybe the worst division in baseball. And yeah, a lot of it, a decent amount of it's because of this manager. Yeah,
you can't argue the fact of that. But just to date back to your question.
Oh, I forgot to put this up. Sorry.
Just to date back to your question, in terms of most disappointing, which did you vote for?
Joe Girardi.
Did you? Yeah. I took Chip Kelly, but I definitely see where you're coming from.
Here's why.
You come from this. Go ahead.
I agree with you. So here's the thing. I wanted to put more names in the pool, right? I didn't just want to have those two, but those are really in my lifetime the two that stick out, because what are you going to say? Like Mo Cheeks, Doug Collins, those Sixers teams weren't winning anything. You knew that. Doug Peterson, they won a Super Bowl and we didn't know what he was. Andy Reid was like here before I was born. So like that wasn't someone they brought in during my lifetime. He was already here. So Chip Kelly was the other name I threw out there because, this Eagles team, I don't think this was a long time ago. I think I was like an 8th grade or a freshman in high school when he was brought in.
Yeah.
But they brought in this college head coach from Oregon who, had this offense, who had this scheme that was going to transform the league, and, no one could solve it. And you remember that Monday night game?
Yeah.
They hit the first game against Washington with Vic, and the offense scored like 40 some points. And it was like, holy shit. So that, and then, he just ended up being a complete and utter disaster. But that's also not just because of coaching, though. Again, that's because Chip Kelly stuck his foot in a door that shouldn't have been his. He tried to play GM. He tried, Howie Roseman got forced to the closet, which now, maybe that wasn't such a bad thing, but that's a conversation for another day. So there were more reasons that Chip Kelly was a failure in this city other than just coaching. Joe Girardi just stinks right now as the manager of this Phillies ball club. And look, dude, if it was just here and there where he did something right, and like I said, the argument is, well, who else does he have right out of the bullpen? Let's say when he goes and he grabs Natali Feliz and then he blows a game. And then you see Hector Neris blow a lead. And then you see Kinsler blow a lead, who just came back up, by the way. And you see all these things transpire. So, well, who does he have? Okay. Anybody in that Phillies bullpen. I'm not saying they wouldn't blow it as well. But Natali Feliz is blowing that game. Like, he's giving up that lead. Heck, at the time, any other guy in that bullpen, yeah, he could definitely blow it. But maybe not. Natali Feliz has a 40-some ERA at this point. He has pitched one game for you if they're not pitching in 1,500 days. And you think in a high leverage, again, the Eagles won the Super Bowl in that time.
Yeah, it's a lot of days, dude.
Like you think in a high leverage situation that's a good idea?
Do you hear that?
Yeah, but it's not that bad.
Dude, there's a thunderstorm, bro. It's like,
oh, really? I thought thought your mom's friends were in your house again, and you were your mom wasn't home, because that was weird. Listen, I don't know if your mom's friends watch the show. I'm just gonna let everyone know that was pretty weird. We were getting ready for a show, and Gid's like, "There's people in my house," and I'm like, "Dude, you want to go up there, defend your home or something, or call the cops?" He's like, "No, they're my mom's friends." I'm like, "Is your mom home?" "No, she's not. They're just hanging out in my house." A little weird, but that's just me. All right, I don't really have much else to say on Joe Girardi and this Phillies team, because they just keep. Oh, I'm getting an Adobe Flash player.
Yeah, I get that all the time on my laptop too. Download it.
Sorry, people. Let me exit out of that.
Yeah, but just to touch up on Joe Girardi, when we were I remember a couple years ago we were in the studio, or maybe a year ago at this time.
Year ago, yeah.
We talked about how, dude, championship manager.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, it's not that guy. It's almost like deja vu with who the Sixers hired. And I know I don't want to keep bringing up the Sixers, but it literally feels like deja vu.
It's hard not to, right, Ken? Especially because they're right behind me.
You gotta take that down.
But on our poll, listen, Joe Girardi has 59% of the vote. Chip Kelly has 35%, and 6% say other. Although the geniuses that voted other did not comment other. So that's kind of the trend of the poll here, guys. If you're going to take part and you're going to say other, please classify who other is. Don't just vote other. But moving on again, let's talk about the Birds. I'm very, listen, I tweeted it out 2 days ago. I don't know. I am very, as you know, still skeptical to put all my emotion and my faith into this Eagles team. But I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm ready for football season. I'm ready for the Birds. And a team, there's a team that's going to be awaiting change, a la the 76ers, which we'll get into towards the end of today's show. But there's a team that has already made some changes to this roster. For better or worse, we will find out shortly in just a few months. But the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's a lot of young talent on this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I know Scotty had put out a poll yesterday as well about which young player offensively will have the best season this year in 2021. I want to take it to the aging community on this Eagles roster. Now, offensively, every single skill position player on this Eagles roster is pretty damn young. The quarterback, the running back, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz is about to be traded, I believe, so you can't really include him in this. Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham. I'm not going to include Boston Scott or Greg Ward. I don't know. They feel like vets at this point, but they're still young, I believe, but we're not going to include them. The offensive line, was brutalized last year due to injury. There are a couple aging veterans on this offensive line team, on this offensive line group. Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, all returning from injury, so they can be included. And then the defensive side of the ball has a couple dogs on it as well. Brandon Graham, but I believe he had a good season last year. Fletcher Cox, Rodney McLeod, Darius Slay. That's where all the leadership is on this Eagles team right now, is on the defensive side of the ball. So that this poll is which Eagles vet is most primed to have a bounce back year. Again, I'll let you start with this one. And the question's most primed, but we can discuss all of them and who we think the order will be.
So when I think bounce back, like you said, I think more of like having a bad season. Injury is tough to say bounce back from, but I mean, in essence, it does make sense. I'm going to go with Lane Johnson. Obviously, like you said, the offensive line was bombarded, and I feel like this offensive line as a core has been together for a little bit, and I think Lane Johnson has been the best of all of them. So you're going to need the same productivity, especially with whoever's going to be playing the other guard position is going to be a young guy.
Right.
Not going to be Jason Peters anymore. But
come on, man.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with Lane Johnson, who's primed for a bounce back year.
All right. I agree with you. That is my pick. That's who I voted on. That's who I voted the poll with. But just for the sake of argument, for the sake of, being different, I'll go on the defensive side of the ball. And I could be off here. I could be a little misguided because Fletcher Cox is getting older. Fletcher Cox has battled numerous amounts of injuries throughout his career. So maybe he's just not that guy that we're hoping he is anymore. But again, I want to ask you this, and I want to ask everyone this. And trust me, I love me some Fletcher Cox. But at what point is it not everyone else? Is it just on Fletch? Like every season, you know what I mean? Like every season we try to bring in a guy to pair next to Fletcher Cox to alleviate that pressure, to alleviate double teams and let him work one-on-one, right? We brought in Timmy Jernigan the year of the Super Bowl. We brought in Malik Jackson, then he got hurt. We brought in Javon Hargrave now, and he underachieved with all that money last year. So don't get me wrong. These guys that I just named have battled injuries. They have underachieved as well. But when Fletcher Cox is Fletcher Cox, when we were trying to argue he was up there with Aaron Donald just a few short years ago, when is it just on him? When is it, I don't care if you're getting double teamed. I don't care. Just be dominant. And sure, like we've seen flashes of Cox have a good game. We've seen flashes of him blowing up a play in the backfield. We've seen a sack here and there, but I'd have to go through his numbers. I don't think he had like more than 5 sacks last season, and that's just not good enough for the leader of your defense, for being Fletcher Cox. So when is it enough of, well, he always gets double teamed. They need Javon Hargrave to step up so then Fletch can get a one-on-one. When can he just be dominant like he's paid and supposed to be? So Fletcher, for the sake of being different, I'm going to say Fletcher Cox. I know he's aging and maybe he's just not that guy anymore.
To answer your question though, I think it's this year. I think it's put up or shut up time for a lot of these vets, truthfully. You're either going to see after this season a rebuild process, or maybe we're tooled up to be a good football team again. Yeah. So there's not a lot of time for Fletch to, like you said, be a question. It's either are you going to be this guy or are you going to be not who Fletcher Cox was, in a sense, if he's that guy that we think he is. So I think that's for all these guys. I think it's for Brandon Brooks coming back off 2 years injury. Like, there's not a lot of time to figure this stuff out. We're either going to flip a new chapter or these guys are going to stick around, and hopefully we can tool the roster that it is right now to be something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. To your point, like, let me just phrase this to you, right? I just named a bunch of guys, and Brandon Graham is not one guy, that I'm going to put on that list, because Brandon Graham has been consistently very good. For the last 2 seasons, he has been their best defensive line player. He may or may not have been their best defensive player and one of the best players on this entire roster over the last 2 years. He's had, I believe, 8 and 8.5 or 8 and 9.5 sacks over the last 2 years. He's the most consistent. He's the most dominant player. So Brandon Graham, BG, does not get thrown into who's going to have a bounce back year, because I think out of the few guys that did have a pretty stellar year in the mess that was 2020, Brandon Graham was one of those guys. Another name that I put on the poll simply because I see a lot of people in this fan base talk about him, but I don't agree with it at all, is Darius Slay. Because there are people, I don't see how he can be a bounce back year because I thought he was very, very good last year. There are people that are saying, what are you watching? He was terrible. When I throw the argument that, his 3 bad games were when he was put on an island versus Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, and I'm missing one. It wasn't Michael Thomas. Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, and there was one more that he was put on an island with.
It was the Cleveland game, right? I'm pretty sure he got torched in the Cleveland game.
Maybe. But regardless, and they say, well, you paid him to be the number 1 corner. Well, dude, he was left on an island. The size, the physicality, they don't match up. No cornerback in this league, especially no 6-foot corner in this league, I don't care what he's paid to be, is not matching up with Davante Adams and DK Metcalf on the outside on an island like Jim Schwartz left him on, okay? Outside of those 2 to 3 those bad games that he got beat up on, he held receivers. I think the average was like 40 yards or under, or 45 yards or under per game. I thought he was awesome last year. And then I see a couple people, complain about his contract and that they're mad that the Eagles brought him in and paid him and everything. Again, Darius Slay has made 3 Pro Bowls in his career. You know when they were? So he was an Eagle in 2020. He made a Pro Bowl 2017, 2018, 2019. So coming into being an Eagle, he had made the Pro Bowl 3 straight years. I believe he's only 29. He might be 30 years old now. Okay. And he got beat up by 3 of the best wide receivers in the game last year when he was left on an island because he's only 6 foot. Okay. So Darius Slay, I thought was fantastic last year. You need to go get another legitimate outside corner to put across from him. Avonte Maddox does not work. We've seen it not work on the outside. He's a slot guy. Crayvon LeBlanc cannot play on the outside. Dude, did you know, as of right now, do you know who their number 2 is or will be?
Oh, who is it?
Michael Jacquet. Again. The kid that played good
Didn't
in
he
the Arizona
play at some
game.
point? I was going to say,
Yeah.
I remember him playing.
Yeah. Oh, and then wait, and we drafted. Didn't we draft a corner this year?
Yeah, we drafted the kid out of Texas
McPherson.
Tech, right?
Yeah. Zach with an E.
That
Tyrone Johnson
can't play on the outside, right? Didn't they say that?
Yeah, I believe so. So they need to go to make Darius Slay's life easier. They need another cornerback number 2 to make the entire defense's life easier. They need a cornerback number 2. And another reason I say that a majority of the vets that need to bounce back in are on the defensive side of the ball is because not only are they, the leaders, and there's a bunch of youth on the offense, not a lot of veterans. It's also because this offense, I'm excited about this offense. I probably, I'm hesitant to be excited about it, but you have the new coach, you have the new scheme. He's very good with running backs and getting guys the ball in space. And so now Rager can maybe be put in a better position. Miles Sanders, they brought in Kerryon Johnson. He might not make the team, but we'll see. I hope he does. Jalen Hurts, the offensive line's healthy. They brought in Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert gets a chance, tight end number 1. I'm excited about all that. The defensive side of the ball is where I think they're going to get killed this year. So they need to step up simply to prove that theory wrong, because right now I don't think they're a very good defense at all.
Yeah, you brought up a name that I was going to bring up, which is Dallas Goedert. And if you want to talk about put up or shut up time, I think it's really here for him. You've had this side of the fan base that thought he was tight end number 1 for the last couple of years because Zach Ertz can't break tackles was the reasoning behind it. So, I mean, it's definitely time, and I'm going to be rooting for the guy, but I know you were kind of on my side of the fence at the beginning of the year last year when people were like, oh, flip Ertz now. This is the highest value you get for him. Goddard's ready, and we'll see. So,
no, we'll definitely see. He's shown flashes. I was just getting annoyed with people that are like, oh, Goddard's tight end 1. Well, he hasn't shown you anything to be tight end 1. He's shown flashes of being a very good tight end. He can block a lot better than Zach Ertz. He definitely can break tackles better than Zach Ertz. He's pretty fast. He's just a huge human being over the middle of the field, and he presents a large target for Jalen Hurts. So you're right. I hope there's a lot of guys offensively that have to show me something because of their youth, but then on the defensive side, they have to show me something or they need to get the hell out because I've had enough of it because I've dealt with it for so many years now. And like I said, I mentioned how you have Sirianni with the new scheme offensively. Same thing defensively. You have Gannon coming over as well. So we'll see what the defense looks like this year again. They also added Eric Wilson. They added Harris, the safety from Minnesota, and Wilson, the linebacker from Minnesota. So we'll see. Steven Nelson. This is a little off topic, but Steven Nelson would be a guy I would love to bring in here. I've been talking about it with Scotty for a while now. So we'll see what happens there again. And our last
Ryan Kerrigan.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. And that's someone we haven't even talked about. Yeah, that's someone we haven't even talked about. And that's another thing for that defensive line / linebacker group, that edge rushing group. I think he's huge for that. I think he'll get more playing time than he was going to with that deep defensive core that Washington has. He's a leader. He tore us up, so at least he won't be doing that anymore.
He doesn't have to play against us. I think that's the biggest part.
Right. See, the issue is it's not just that now. I want him to be – I know he's getting older, right, and he was seeing less snaps last year than he was before, but can he produce still as an Eagle? Not just – remember Al Horford? Remember that many, many years ago, it seems like? When, he's not against us anymore, and then he came here and absolutely sucked. Same thing. Can Ryan Kerrigan come here and produce and play a role? For this poll, which Eagles vet is most primed for a bounce-back season? 21% say Fletcher Cox. This is what I don't get, Gint. 38% say Lane Johnson. 3% say other. 38% say Darius Slay.
That's just...
What?
I don't know if it's trolls or what, but I hope it's trolls, to say the least. So
I don't think so, dude. I think there's a large portion of the fan base out there that thinks he wasn't good last year. And listen, he wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination, but look at the rest of the defense. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting to me that he's up there, that he's tied for the lead in this poll. And then our last poll of the night, Gint, let's get into who is number 2, meaning if Damian Lillard isn't available or if he's off the table via trade for the Philadelphia 76ers, who is your target? Who is the next guy that you guys want? So please feel free to comment with us for this conversation. I know a lot of our viewers are heavy Sixers chat here. So this is your Sixers chat right now. The options for the poll were Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, Russell Westbrook, or other. Bradley Beal leads that poll 57%, Zach LaVine at 27%, Russell Westbrook at 10%, and other 6%. There was a comment, Reggie Jackson was a comment. I don't know if Reggie Jackson would be my number 2 outside of Damian Lillard. But yeah, again, I got to agree with the people's vote here. And I don't think a lot of people will disagree here. Well, obviously people do because they would have all voted for Bradley Beal, but I don't see how it would be anyone else but Bradley Beal. Like, I would take Zach LaVine, I would take Russell Westbrook, but Bradley Beal, if Dame's not available, Bradley Beal is the next guy that I want. Yeah,
I think that's definitely clear. The only issue you kind of run into is, like, realistic-wise, I don't think Washington can make the move to pair Ben and Russell Westbrook unless they had a plan to move Russell Westbrook immediately after. But I don't think – I would probably put him 1A and 1B between LaVine and Beal if you were to make the move, obviously. But I think it also depends on the package you have to give either way. I think you probably have to give up a little bit more to get Beal than you do LaVine. But we'll see.
There were some comments, too. I believe someone quote tweeted it and said Lonzo Ball.
I don't know if he's in my top 50.
Is Josh Hart?
Also, hold on, announcement. So you know how that thing came out about the likeliness the NCAA players?
Yeah.
Colin Gillespie just signed his first deal. Who do you think?
Really? Where?
Who do you think it's? Barstool.
Wait, really?
Dude, the craziest thing is, I don't know if you watched. It was round 1 of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I watched.
A while ago. Not last year. And then the year before it was the pandemic. The year before that. He laid the ball up with a second left up like a certain amount, and it put the game – they ended up covering because of it, and Portnoy took whoever they played, and he tweeted them and said, "What are you doing, you dummy? Like, the game is over." and now he just signed with Barcelona. It's pretty cool.
Well, congrats, dude, and that's the biggest thing. And we can wrap up by we'll continue the Sixers chat for a little bit, and then we can wrap up with that. But again, I haven't really, we've texted about it, but like you said, you haven't been on the show for a while. I was down the shore for a week, kind of getting my mind right after that Game 7 loss. You've been working. Apparently, Coach Ginn is coaching 4 teams. I don't even know how that's possible.
Much obligations, man.
I would be, messing up kids' names left and right and forgetting who's on what team.
It's a lot of the same group, though. It's my 7th and 8th graders, then my high schoolers, but they're all kind of pieced on different squads. And
all right,
man.
All right, but anyway, again, I just want to get your thoughts on this because you are, we're all Ben stands on the show, but you have been number one, I think, leading, the conductor of that train, so to speak. I'm not trading Ben for pennies on the dollar. To me, Ben Simmons only gets moved if it pushes the Sixers closer to a championship. So trading Ben Simmons for D'Angelo Russell, for Andrew Wiggins, for Colin Sexton and Kevin Love, for Marvin Bagley and Buddy Hield. No, that does not make the Sixers better. That does not get them past the second round. Does not push them closer to a championship. But there are guys now that a few months ago I said no to trading Ben for that I most likely will pull the trigger on now. Dame's obviously number one, but Bradley Beal I would do now. Zach LaVine I would do now. Those are the 3 that I would do for Ben Simmons. And because I pose this to you again, you can't trade them for pennies on the dollar, but I don't know how they can run it back unless there was proof that Ben's mental and Ben's offensive game changes this year, because you can't keep wasting Joel Embiid's prime for a 24-year-old Ben Simmons who won't get out of his own way necessarily. So I don't know how they can run it back, but you also can't move them for peanuts. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Because like you said, you haven't been on the show.
Yeah. It sucks, to say the least, that the conversations are even a thing, because all year it was like all year we were convinced it could work. It looked like it could work. The 2 of them could work. They could win. We
hit a goddamn roadblock.
And the coach got out-coached, and it showed every single one of Ben's flaws to a very high standard, to say the least. So my way to describe what I'd do if I'm moving him is all the chips are going in on these next 2 to 3 years. And by every chip, I mean every single chip, to the point where after that 3rd year, we could be the worst team in the NBA for the next 6 years. The only way I'm moving him is to know I'm putting myself in the best position possible. So what the Eagles did, in a sense of what it looks like, you're going to be in a bad situation with Cat. You're not going to have any draft picks. Your best players aren't going to be that good for a little while. But the only way I'm moving him is everything's on the table. Exactly what I wanted them to do at the deadline, to go get Kyle Lowry, to go get a playmaker that definitely could have helped in this series in which he lost the game.
But that didn't include Ben Simmons at the time. Like Kyle
Lowry.
Obviously
not. It was more like a Lowry deal. Yeah, just like that. But and if they move him, part of me thinks it's time, because they, like you said, Joel, how much time does Joel have? And it needs to be figured out as soon as possible. But I'm going to say this. You run into an issue of you move him and you go get a star, and he turns into this guy that got out of his own way, and he turns into what he is. You look back on this as – But that's so let's say Carson Wentz pans out this year and turns back to MVP form. The Colts go win the title – or the Super Bowl, sorry. It would be worse if Ben even just found a jump shot and went somewhere else and still lost 70 games. Truthfully.
But that's where you're right, because you're right with the statement that you're doing it to win a championship over the next 2 to 4 years, probably 2 to 3 to 4 years. Which is why, like I said, the people that are hesitant for a Damian Lillard package, that we have no idea what the package is, what the asking price of Portland is. What if Dame says he's out? What if Dame is not playing another game for Portland? He will not do it. Then that makes that package less and less. But for the people that are hesitant to have a package of a Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, and then the pick swaps and first round picks, to our point right now, you are trying to win because you have Joel Embiid. Guys, by the time Tyrese Maxey, you don't want to move Tyrese Maxey because he's a good young player and you really think he could be blah, 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 X in the league. This is his ceiling, right? But when's that ceiling come? After Joel Embiid's gone. Matisse Thybulle, same thing. And then what? Like you can't turn it to, well, we could win a championship with Maxey as the centerpiece. No, you have Joel Embiid, the MVP runner-up right now. The point is to build around him right now. And if that takes all those chips to get Damian Lillard, you push him to the middle of the table and you say, here you go. Let's go win a championship. Damian Lillard still has 3 years left on his deal, I believe. He's only 30 years old, I believe. A two-man game. Again, do you remember many, many months ago, before the season started, not the deadline Harden rumors, before the season started, and we talked about the rumors of Harden to Philly. And I said I wouldn't do it at the time for Ben. But I was the one on the Faithful Fanatics because I was saying it intrigues me. There are not a lot of guys in this league I would trade Ben Simmons for. This intrigues me because of the two-man game between Joel Embiid and James Harden, because of that offensive capability. It's the same thing here with Dame, if not even more. A two-man game with Joel Embiid, another superstar next to Joel Embiid. You'll still have Tobias Harris, and that changes everything. Again, I said this the other day. Joel Embiid's going to average around 30. You bring in Damian Lillard, he averages around 30. The Tobias Harris that you asked to be your second guy this year offensively, who was averaging 20, 21 points per game, he can give you 18 to 21 as the third option. Do you know how different that is than your second option? And then you still have Seth Curry, an offensive starting lineup of Joel Embiid, Damian Lillard, Tobias Harris, Seth Curry. And yeah, you got to figure out what happens there. Whether you bring back Danny Green, I don't know. That's lethal, dude. And now I want to phrase this to you to wrap up today's show because it's something that I'm going to be talking about throughout the offseason. I just talked offense, right? And what is the one thing that people love in the city and that we loved Ben for and we love Matisse for? That grind, that defensive effort, their defensive capabilities, right? We value it too much, Gint. Good offense will always beat great defense. What do people say? What do people say when Ben Simmons plays great defense on Damian Lillard and Dame hits a turnaround, 28-footer or 25-footer? Oh, that's great defense, just a better shot, right? The whistles favor the offensive player, not the defender. What did we get, Gint? We got a second-round exit with 3 all-NBA defensive players. You know, the issue wasn't defense for the 76ers this year again. It was the fact that they let a bad Atlanta Hawks defensive team hold them to under 100 points 3 times in a 7-game series. That was the issue. So, yeah, I'm not saying you can't have any defense. You're not going to win a championship that way either. But to hold on to Matisse because he's a really good defender, and if he could, shoot 38% from 3, he could be, yeah, that's true. But you do it to get Damian Lillard. So that my question to you is, are you willing to give up all the defense for the offensive explosion?
So let me start off with this. The package that's rumored, any package, to be honest with you, the name Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris aren't in it, and obviously Ben being in it, I'd do it. I'd do Ben, Tyrese, Shake, Tease, everyone. I'd do it all to go get Dame. But here's where I run into some issues. One, and again, let me reiterate, I'd do it 1,000 times. Dame has never played with anybody of Joel Embiid's nature ever. Every single one of his big men have been pick setters, divers to the rim. Joel Embiid's not that. He's back to the basket guy that Doc Rivers refused to put his back to the basket in a Game 7, but that's beside the point. So that would be really interesting to see. But then you run to the issue of, okay, let's say Brooklyn runs this thing back with their 3 guys. And we're talking offense. Which I agree with. We probably should try to flip the script. You look at what Atlanta brought off the bench, Kevin Huerter, those guys, like long, athletic, just guys that scored the ball. And it was a complete and utter mismatch compared to our second unit. But are you going to out-Nets the Nets?
I think it's the only way. I mean, I know they didn't advance. They lost to Milwaukee, but that was in large part due to injury.
Yeah.
I think I'm off that train. I know where you're going. We would have the best. We talked about all year. We have the best defensive, effort. The most bodies to throw at Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving to slow them down. The bottom line is, if they're all healthy again, you might slow them down. They're still going to get what they want to get, and that's kind of the reality that I faced after trying to keep up with that argument. To answer that question that you were getting to, I'm trying to out-Nets the Nets. And if that's Joel Embiid and Damian Lillard and Tobias Harris and Seth Curry versus Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, that's the way it's got to be. I can't have Matisse Thybulle coming off the bench to try to guard James Harden and slow him down, and I can't do it anymore. I'm fighting offense with offense.
Okay, so let me throw this at you now. Let's say you make the move. Tease, Ben, Tyrese, gone. You're left with Seth. If you bring back Danny Green, if you bring back George Hill.
Well, George is back, ain't he?
He's got 1 year left. I assume he's going to probably be a filler in some type of trade this year. I really do think so. Do you keep Seth?
Yeah.
And here's why I asked that question. You look at who's left, and you look at Phoenix Suns are kind of like a weird one. They're Chris Paul and Devin Booker are so elite that the size doesn't matter. But you look at the Kevin Huerters, the Cam Reddishes, they're not small. They're not Seth Curry size. They're not. It's becoming a positionless thing where you have to be. I don't say you have to be, but 6'6". I know Seth played really well down the stretch in that series. He had a very high usage rate, though. The offense became a dribble handoff every single possession with Seth Curry, and it got so stale to the point where he got a lot of touches and he made a lot of shots, so don't get me wrong. I just think if you go make that move, I think you try to flip Seth immediately after.
See, I think Seth is actually an intriguing piece for other teams because they're looking at his contract and his level of play and offense the same way we are here in Philly. Like, wow, we have him for 2 more years at $8 million a pop. So he could, be an intriguing piece for a trade. I would love to keep Seth, but then that poses the question again. He started all year long for us. He started in the playoffs. He's never been a starter. Is the answer then like maybe his role changes next year? He's a 6-man and you try to find someone else to fit. I just think the makeup of the team is going to look different. I think it's kind of wild.
I also think there'll be someone else in the deal if Dame were to come. And I know everyone's fingers immediately point to Robert Covington, and I'll throw up if that's the case. But I think that's definitely who will be there with him, but it could very well not be.
So just to wrap up, like I think the makeup of this team is going to look different. I don't think Daryl Morey sits on his hands this offseason.
No, there's no way.
There's too many rumors. It's not just blowing smoke, I don't believe. But just to think about, we could have another year based around Joel Embiid. And this is another issue why I think the Sixers are struggling to get past the second round too, Gint. We have Joel Embiid. It's based and Ben. It was based around them too, right? But think about the starting lineups over the course of their tenure. You had the Ben, Joel, Cove, Dario, JJ lineup. The next year, you have Ben, Joel, Toby, JJ, Jimmy. The next year, you have Ben, Joel, Toby, Al Horford, and Josh Richardson. And now this year, you have Ben, Joel, Toby, Seth Curry, and Danny Green. I think that's an issue as well. And the fact that, it's going to look different probably again next year, I think that is an issue. What team, kind of wins a championship looking like that? Every year, your starting 5 is drastically different.
Let me throw you at this, though, before we get off, because I do have a game to get to in an absolute tornado outside. How opposed would you be to giving it 1 year of trying to play Ben at the 4?
I can't do it.
Okay.
No, listen.
I don't even know if I can.
I can. Listen, I'm not saying you can't do it because he needs to be gone. Because, like I said, I'm not trading Ben just to trade him. So he could be back if I'm the GM next year. But I don't think that matters. I think it's more positionless basketball nowadays. I think, he brought the ball up, Gint. He ran the offense, but he also played in that dunker spot more than he ever has in his career, kind of that 4-hole there. I don't think it works. I don't think that really matters.
And
there were people asking me that the other day.
We're going to get into this a lot more with JD and Scotty, and I'm really interested to see what they say. But even if, let's say we do roll Ben out at the 4 next year and he lights it up, becomes a great slasher, dunks a ton,
doesn't pass.
I think Daryl will still move him at the deadline. I think Ben can come in next year unless he somehow turns into some MVP candidate. I don't think he plays another postseason game for the Sixers. He might play regular season games, but
to build his trade stock.
Dude, this is the lowest his stock's going to be. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to get into a lot more. I'm going to be back a lot more. We'll be able to. We'll get creative.
I am going on vacation starting tomorrow, but I will be taking my mic and my laptop. We won't be on every day, but I will try to get like 2 shows a week or something like that out.
Yeah, I got some days. I got a ton of days off coming up.
So we'll be looking forward to that. Guys, please, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on DSM Media's YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 500 subs by the end of July. Go follow us on Twitter at @DSM_media. Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on TikTok. We have everything going for us. Get my man Ginn a follow at Matt_McGinty. You can follow me at DylanJD98. And please continue to interact with us. We will be doing Twitter polls for every show going forward this summer and in the near future. So for myself, for Ginn, have a nice night.